Okay, so we're gonna spend a few minutes. We're gonna talk about business type. We're gonna talk about taxes and insurance, and we're gonna talk about organization. Okay, business type. In general, businesses are formed in one of three ways: as a proprietorship, as a limited company, and as a corporation. Proprietorship basically means that you are the business. The advantage to that is it's very inexpensive to do. It's very easy to start. It's very simple in terms of the tax situation. You just call up the state and say, I want to be a business, and I think it costs you $15 to start your business. You need a name and you need an address. So that's called a proprietorship. The next one in terms of major is called an LLC, a limited liability company. A limited liability company, the advantage to a limited liability company is that if, let's say, I'm producing a film and the special effect that I have starts a fire in the building next door and the building burns down, they're going to come after me to fix that building. And in a proprietorship, there's no barrier between me and the liability of the company. So whatever the company is responsible for, I am also personally responsible for. In an LLC, anything that the company does, the company is responsible for, and my personal goods, my personal value is not affected by that unless I'm considered to be negligent in that process. And then there's always the possibility that your personal wealth or value is potentially there. So an LLC is typically similar to a proprietorship, it just limits the liability. The last piece is a corporation. The corporation is something whereby the business becomes an entity all on its own. It's completely divorced from you. It's cut up into a bunch of pieces, and people own pieces of it, just like we could go out and buy a piece of Ford Motor Company or General Mills or Microsoft or Toyota. They're all corporations because it gives me the ability to have a zillion different owners that all are willing to put in money in the start and be owners of the business but not runners of the business. This is where most people start. It's the simplest, it's the cheapest, it has the least regulation in terms of what the state requires of you. This is where you end when you get to be worth zillions of dollars. And the reason for that is to get from here to here, you've got to have some funding to get there. So that's the range. It's easy to go this direction from what the state believes. It's virtually impossible to go this direction. And that's why most people start here. That's a really broad brush. I wanted to introduce you to that concept. When you start your business, when you get your first business license, you should probably pick between these two, deciding whether or not you think you have a significant liability problem. Not everybody does. Insurance, next. Insurance comes in several forms. What you can insure is, the first thing you insure for is liability. Okay? Liability is when somebody else comes after you because they have been harmed. Liability insurance stands between you and the person that's been harmed and takes care of that harm by the insurance company's money. Second kind of insurance is property insurance. Property insurance is insurance for what you have. Most people who own a car have car insurance. That's an example of property insurance. Liability is if the harm goes to somebody else. Property insurance is if the harm goes to the property. Homeowners insurance is also property insurance. It's what I have. I make a mistake. I burn my house down. Property insurance is going to rebuild my house. Those are the two major kinds of insurance. There's another thing called bonding. I don't know if anybody has been asked for a bond yet, but sometimes people are asked for a bond. A bond is similar to liability insurance, but it's a guarantee from the insurance company that what you do will be done. Liability is harm from doing something that wasn't intended. A bond is harm from not doing what was intended. Not doing what was intended. And that's why you have a bond.
Wait, can you repeat that really quickly?
Okay, this is a hard concept. Liability is when the harm goes to somebody where you've done something wrong, something you did not intend to happen, did happen, it harmed somebody else, and so they want to be brought back to where they were before the harm happened. I ran somebody over with my car. I was painting and the paint got all over somebody else's house. That's what a liability is. This is what was not intended to happen but did happen by mistake. A bond is where I say, I'm going to paint your house, and I'm going to paint your house for $37, and I find out halfway through the house it's going to cost me $93 to paint it, and I walk off the job. If you provided a bond, the bond company will finish the paint of the house. So this covers doing or finishing what was intended in the first place. Okay? So when you don't do what should have been done, that's covered by a bond. When you do what should not have been done, that's covered by liability insurance. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
90% of companies have to have liability insurance. 50% of companies have property insurance. 1 or 2% of companies have bonding. Bonding almost never happens. The best story I can tell you about bonding, I think, a few years ago, they were rebuilding the bridge from Seattle to Mercer Island. And as they were rebuilding it, part of it sunk. Okay? Why did it sink? Because the reason the floating bridge floats is there's a bunch of big balloons made out of concrete underneath the bridge. Right? It's big concrete tubes with caps on them that basically act like balloons that float the bridge. Well, one of the things you have on those is you have these hatch covers so people can go in and inspect the inside of these big tubes. And one day, the people that were working on the bridge left the covers off of the tubes, and a storm came up. And guess what happened? The tubes filled up with water, and guess what happened? The bridge went to the bottom. Okay? Well, my guess is the people that had the contract to clean those tubes didn't quite finish. And if they had a bond, and the State Department of Transportation typically requires a bond that you will finish what you're doing, the bond probably paid for making the tubes float again. Okay?
So with that, like, I'm trying to think about a, normal case where somebody
bonds happen in things where things are bid, okay?
But
You
what about
say,
somebody who has like a chronic health problem or something and knows that, or wants to, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of another scenario that,
for bonding,
yeah.
well, it's almost all business to business. It almost never includes consumers, and it almost always has to do with an agency going out and saying, okay, this is what I need done, come in with your best bid, okay? And everybody cuts prices down to the bone and says, okay, I think I can do it for this. Well, there's not a whole lot of profit in those situations. And the government typically has to take the lowest priced bid because that's responsibility to the voters, the taxpayers, and so they have to take that one, but they want to guarantee that it's going to happen. They want to take this bid and somebody can come in and say, well, you know, I just bid too little, I can't do it, and now they got a half-done project and somebody else at 10% higher would have done the whole thing, and it's now 50% done and the money's all gone. So they will require a bond that project get finished. That's really what bonding is all about.